What's going on, everybody? It's Cable Line Network here, chilling out, maxing out, doing my thing on Warframe, glorious Warframe. Alright, y'all. Now, in today's build of my series Warframe builds, where I take your favorite anime, other type of superhero villain from movie franchises, and make builds of them in Warframe, original series dedicated to Cable Line Network. Let's get started. Alright, now we're getting into Grey Fullbuster, Fairytail Ice Wizard, whose parents was killed by Daily Aura. Now, he learned ice magic from Yule, and basically has started his whole adventure with Natsu as his rival, aka best friend. He's gone on many adventures with the Fairytail Guild, and has fought demons, gods, and even dragons. Now, the thing is, Grey always takes his clothes off, so the best way to mimic him would be an ice made creation. Alright, now we're actually going to get into how to properly customize the ice made creation. Now, first off, I decided to go with the Frost Aurora helmet just because it looked more fairy tale. As you see, the rest of the helmets really didn't go about it. That looked way too mechanical. That would have been alright, but this just looks so much more fairy tale. Alright, now we're actually going to get into the actual proper of the coloring. Now, let's be honest here. When you actually want to color this in, you're going to have to purchase the ice color pack. You are going to have to purchase that. I did say that some of my builds would require that. Now, when you purchase the ice pack, all you have to do is go all the way to the edge here. You see where that little square is going up and down? That's the closest you can get to Grey's ice. In the anime, Grey's ice had a type of transparent look to it. As in Warframe, it's a more solid color, so you can't really get exact. The whole point of this roleplay is to get as close as you can get. But hey, it still works. And hell, the ice color pack, I mean, come on. I might do other ice themed anime characters. Put in the comments, what other ice themed anime characters should I make a video about next? Alright, now we're getting into the whole tattoo that's on Grey's right pec. And well, it's the Fairytail emblem. Now, I'm actually gonna, fast forward through this because it literally took me a while to get the whole color and detail down. You wanna make a color like that, it's the closest you can get to the Fairytail emblem. And in all honesty, Red Veil's emblem is sick, and it also is the closest to the semblance of Fairytail, since the fairies actually have wings, and boom, this is actually wings. Hell, Dead Orbit rocks even more now, come to think of it. Haha. Alright, now let's see. How did he have it? Oh no, he had it this way. Right, let me see if I can just shrink it down and flip it back the other way. God, I was literally, testing the controls on this. I never actually decided to rotate one of my emblems before, but I'm actually glad I did it for this one. Alright, now there we go. Yep, the Fairytail emblem. Alright, now we got the coloring and such down and the emblem. Let's get into the abilities. Alright, now Grey did have an ability called Ice Arrow, where he basically made a bow and he made a bright blue arrow just like how you're looking at right here, and he shot it at the enemy. Usually it was an insta kill. Now the Attica is used for Grey's Super Freeze Arrow, which was a volley of arrows being super fast shot at any type of enemy. Now, having an ice perk on this as well as puncture would be highly beneficial, as well as coloring the arrows the same color as your Warframe. The thing I love about this, you can literally, whatever weapon you want that's going to be in this build, just easily copy the color of your Warframe to any weapons, armor, or attachments, and you'll still have the Grey feel. Now, we're not going with any sidearms right now, just because I didn't really feel that any of the sidearms truly qualified Grey. Now, we're also going into, well, he did have an Ice Make scythe, but we're going into the Ice Make Cold Excalibur, which was actually used more in the series than any other of his Ice Make abilities. Now, Ice Make Cold Excalibur was a giant sword that he had, and he could easily wield it around. He had no companions, so we're not bringing any Sentinels or a Kubra with us. Alright, now that everything has been talked about and such, by the way, you want to make sure you got the appropriate ice color, because you see how the ice is actually blowing out Frost's, vents? It has the same color as when Grey actually made the ice initially. You want to get that same feel. Now that I showed you about the colors and such, it's time for me to show you guys. Oh, the Dreadbow is kind of different, by the way. You can just check out that color scheme. It's a tiny bit different, just a tiny bit. Alright, now we're getting into the actual mods. Now, the mods are going to be pretty basic with a bit of a twist. Yes, you're going to have ice damage on it, but you're going to need a little bit more to match Grey's characteristics. I will show you right now. Alright, now first off, I'm going to, configuration B. You're going with flow. Gray always had an amazing burst of energy to be able to keep up with Natsu in fighting, as well as efficiency because Gray was efficient at his abilities, having been trained by one of the 10 great wizards. Alright, now we're actually going over to Rush. Now, Gray he was not as fast as Natsu or Laxus, but he did have a bit of a rush, so you might want to put that on there. He was also able to handle Natsu's flames for years of them fighting, so he is resistant to some types of fire abilities. So throwing a flame repellent on there would be quite helpful. Now, you also have to remember, Gray, just like a lot of the other Fairytail top wizards, had amazing endurance. So you want to have Vanity on there as well, giving an amazing big health boost. It can really simulate how Gray could take a real beating, like a real beating. Now, you also want to either put on Rifle Amp or you can put on the melee one, whichever one. I put on the Rifle Amp because I'm a bow user. You put on the melee one, you can swing around Cold Excalibur all you want, or Ice Mage Cold Excalibur, whatever you want to call it. Alright guys, now up next is personally my favorite weapon in the game, the Dread. Oh, that Ice Mage Cold Excalibur looks so nice. Alright, anyway, let's get back into the Dread, shall we? Going over to configure B. Now, remember, you want to have, of course, ice rounds on this, and you also want to have piercing hit and serration. Now, Gray's attacks had major piercing damage. They always went through the opponent after he shot them, so you really want to make sure you have that key on there for the appropriate roleplay. Now, because Gray could always make more of these arrows with magic, having an arrow mutation to where you have a constant supply would also be highly beneficial to the role. Now, with serration, you can choose to have that on there, but in all honesty, you need to have it on there. If you don't have it on there, it really will not feel like Gray. Remember, Gray was able to keep up with Natsu's impact. You have to remember that. Alright, now we're getting into Ice Mage Cold Excalibur. Now, I really decked that out. This is my default build on it, by the way. Now, the Ice Mage Cold Excalibur was a huge blade that Gray was able to swing easily, so having a Fury attack speed boost on here would be very beneficial. Of course, cold damage only. Now, of course, piercing hit and puncture damage is something that this needs as well, just like all of Gray's attacks. Now, you can have Berserker on there, yes or no, that's totally up to you. I had it on there just because I love the way it spins. You're really going to need a stance for this just because Gray was trained by one of the top 10 Wizard Saints, which means that he has high discipline in martial arts as well as cold resistant. Oh yes, that's another thing. Make sure to put on cold resistant too. Gray was an ice wizard. Alright, now we're also going to get into actual gameplay, showing you guys how these abilities actually work and how they go together. Now, while I'm doing this, I'm going to tell you some backstory about Gray. Now, Gray's parents were killed by Deliora a while ago. That's how he actually made his way to Fairytail. Him and Leon were trained by Yule, who actually gave her life in order to protect them from Deliora. She actually killed him by freezing him in ice shell, which causes the user to die just because it uses the actual user's life energy to contain whatever is being aimed at. Now, in all honesty, you could call the avalanche ability that Frost used ice shell just because he is bringing a dome around him that is freezing the entire area. You could call it that, even though it doesn't take any of your health. You know, this is roleplay here. Alright, now we're also going to do a few more other abilities, you know, just showing off the ice freeze arrows, and I just love it with all my heart and soul. Now, another thing too, as you see, it kind of gives a little bit of a shine as well, as you see. That's another thing I wanted. Every time Gray did his ice make abilities, it was always a shine. Now, right here, you can simulate ice make shield, which is something he always used. Now, that was of course to guard against a variety of different attacks. Now, having the bow is beneficial because that was the prime source of Gray's long distance, as well as an ice cannon. But there hasn't been anything in here that I have personally seen that has mimicked that, so we're just going with ice arrows. Now, the main thing I love about Frost is freeze wave. Now, the freeze wave, which is going to use right here, can actually be called Ice Make Freeze Lancer. It creates larger ice lances that attacks enemies. Now, the first ability of Frost, which is Freeze, can be called Ice Make Normal Lands. It's just a normal projectile that impales the opponents. And of course, it does some freezing damage as well. I mean, come on, if you get impaled by some ice, I'm pretty sure you're going to get a little bit of a frostbite. Haha. Now, this is why I wanted the energy and the blade to be the certain type of color. Now, this is the exact color he makes when he initially starts his Ice Make attack. Do you see how pretty that looks? Now, I really wanted to get the whole shine going with the icy texture, and this was perfect. I'm really actually happy the way this turned out. It took me about a couple of hours to really get down the coloring for this, but it was all the more worth it. Now, you can also use your energy to kind of, when you kill the opponents and makes them dissipate, kind of give like an icy chill feel with that as well. Now, another thing, the Berserker. The Berserker is awesome. It's awesome. It honestly kind of reminds me of Gray's Ice Make Unlimited, to where he had like a circle of ice objects and they were just annihilating Rufus. It kind of reminds me of that. Guys, this is an original build by Cable Line Network. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more, and keep updated with the series. What should the next build be? Put it in the comment section below. Peace out, and I'll talk to y'all laters.